Good evening, everybody. I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. Can I get a thumbs up if you can? Perfect. Thank you. I hope everyone had a really awesome Easter vacation. Um, Suppose it's back to the grind now, hey? Learning Unit 4, Theme 1 and Theme 2. So there's quite a bit of content that we have to cover today. And next week, we obviously conclude with Theme 4 because or Learning Unit 4, which is Theme 3. And then we'll basically be done with that. And then we'll move over to the last two learning units that's left for this module. So in Learning Unit 4 specifically, we're going to go over what we call inventory management, which we've touched on in quite a few of our previous learning units in terms of our definitions, etc. But just so we understand, inventory management is actually quite important and extremely crucial for businesses across many different industries because it directly impacts how satisfied your customers are with the product, what is your financial performance in it, as well as what is the um, operational efficiency when it comes to how best you can manage your inventory within your business. So, sort of like the top three in my sort of best way of me explaining it to you is um, you want to understand the importance of inventory management, and the best way is number one, understanding the customer satisfaction. So we know that inventory management plays quite a pivotal role in meeting what your customers' demands are at a time that the customer demands it. So you need to be able to maintain quite adequate stock levels to make sure that your product is available when your customer needs them, when your customer wants them. You don't want any stockouts and you don't want any back orders because this can create a lot of frustration for the customer itself. So by doing this, your customer satisfaction is enhanced, your customer loyalty is enhanced because your customer keeps coming back for more because of the service that they received from you. You get a lot of repeat business based on this, and also positive word of mouth. I think a lot of ways in which many businesses operate right now is by word of mouth. Social media can be great, but it can also be someone's worst nightmare. Everything goes onto social media now, whether you on a community group chat or you on a Hello Peter page, whether you've had 20 good experiences and one bad experience. Unfortunately, your one bad experience gets posted for the world to see. So ensuring customer satisfaction is very important. You want to be able to have some sort of competitive advantage. So by having quite an efficient inventory management system, but and maintaining this, you can give you quite a competitive advantage because it allows for your business to respond quite quickly to changes in your customer preferences, also respond to different sort of market dynamics because the market changes quite often. So businesses that can sort of adapt their inventory levels and their product offerings that they have in real time are more better positioned to capitalize on on different opportunities and also outperform competitors. And then lastly, from a cost control perspective, if you have poor inventory management, unfortunately, it can lead to you having an increased holding cost where you have cash strapped um, in inventory. It can also lead to storage costs, insurance costs, and also depreciation. If you have too much or excess inventory, it ties up a lot of your money that could be invested in like expansion or better machinery, better tools, hiring better labor forces. So when you have an efficient inventory management system and better processes and practices, your businesses can minimize your holding cost and you can avoid unnecessary expenditure. Um, so you have better profitability at the end of the day. So inventory management, very important in that perspective. It can push a lot of your supply chain efficiencies because you're forecasting better demand. You want to optimize your inventory levels. You streamline a lot of your processes like procurement and production and distribution. Um, you can plan your transportation and logistics a bit better, and therefore your supply chain performance ends up increasing and being better improved. Okay. Um, Move on to the next one, which is principles of inventory management, which is something that we sort of kind of touched on in previous slides. Um, So in order for sort of a inventory management system to be built, it needs to be built on some key principles itself in order for you to look at better optimization in your business and for you to be able to maximize as much as your efficiency from an operational side. Um, so some of the factors or the principles that contribute towards it is JIT, which is your just-in-time inventory. So here the aim is to minimize your inventory holding cost because you're synchronizing your inventory level with production and demand. So as the words say, just in time, you are manufacturing your items just in time according to the orders that you're receiving from your customer. You are not maintaining large amounts of buffer stock and inventory levels because when businesses use your JIT inventory systems, um, you're only producing the inventory when you need it. So you don't have cash that's strapped in inventory. So you don't have high carrying costs. And you also have a lot more working capital. So you can use it into other investments. But just in time itself, it requires almost perfect demand forecasting in order for you to avoid stockouts. So it needs to be forecasted down to the T in order for um, this to work and for your inventory management system to then work at the end. The next one is demand forecasting, which is probably one of the most fundamental principles of inventory management. You want to be able to forecast your demand as accurately as possible. And you do this by analyzing your historical data, what's your market trends, all of these different factors in order for you to predict what your future demand for your product is. A lot of times businesses use previous year's data like year on year to understand what their target is going to be for the new year, plus they add on a little bit of a margin in order for them to understand. So when you have an accurate demand forecast, you can prevent stockouts from happening. You can prevent having excess inventory on your floor. So you have the right amount of inventory available the time that you need it. So demand forecasting, NB, very important. The next one is what we call ABC analysis. So ABC basically categorizes your inventory based on the inventory value and based on the contribution to the sort of overall sales. So A in ABC basically represents high value products, and they have quite a big contribution towards your revenue. While C item products are lower value, they basically contribute much lower sales revenue or sales volume uh, to your bottom line or to your top line at the end. So when you are prioritizing inventory management based on your ABC classification, your a lot of businesses can allocate the resources a little bit better because they're now focusing on high value items more closely, which makes sense. Sometimes your C class items, because they're lower in value, they have a lower GP or profitability. It does end up selling out possibly faster because of economies of scale and lower prices. However, you have to sell a lot for you to get a margin. Whereas if you're selling high value products, you're probably selling lesser amount, but the contribution to your GP is much higher than um, uh, lower than the C classification. Then we have safety stock management, and safety stock basically is any extra inventory that you have to buffer against any change in demand and possibly a supply lead time. So the whole principle of having a safety stock management basically involves you balancing the cost of carrying too much of inventory with the risk of having a stock out. Because when you are setting sort of the safety stock levels that you want to be at, you base it on demand variability, whether your supplier is reliable or not. So you can mitigate the risk of stock out without having too much of stock, if that makes sense, and without having too much of a carrying cost. Then we have inventory turnover optimization. And you would remember from an inventory turnover perspective, it measures how quickly your business can sell and replace its inventory within a specific period of time. So when you have a high inventory turnover, it means that you have quite an efficient inventory management, whereas your low turnover means that you have excess inventory or your stock is not moving fast enough. So the whole principle of optimization with inventory turnover, it focuses primarily on improving your turnover rates, whether it's through strategies like better demand forecasting or maybe just in time or even monitoring your inventory at a better space than what you currently are doing. And then the last one is having continuous improvement. So when we're looking at inventory management, it's not something that you do once, but it's something that is continuous. You need to regularly review and optimize your inventory policies, your different processes, your different KPIs, so that you can change with the market. Your customers' preferences changes, your business objectives, your missions, your vision may change. You need to be able to adapt. So continuous improvement, like lean management, for instance, or Six Sigma, um, it does help to identify any inefficiency that you have and also to drive a lot more operational excellence in your decision making itself. Okay, so that's the principles of inventory management. So then we move on to the different types of inventory management. Um, and here, I think the various types of inventory is quite self-explanatory, but I'm going to go through each one just so that you have an understanding. So the first one, and it's one that we speak about very often, is raw materials. Okay, so raw materials are your basic materials, basic components that is used to manufacture um, or used in your manufacturing process in order for you to create a finished good. So most often than not, these type of products are in their natural state. They not very processed, formed already. So some of the examples are your metals, your woods, your plastics, your fabrics, different sorts of chemicals. Those are all raw materials. Then we have work in progress. So work in progress inventory basically is partially completed goods. It's still undergoing that manufacturing process. So it is a value of materials, maybe it's labor, overhead costs, everything that's incurred up to the current stage of production. That's where your work in progress inventory basically sits. So some examples here are like semi-finished assemblies or components that's required in an assembly line, like for instance, a tire that needs to be put into a vehicle, or a steering wheel, or the rubber, or whatever different components that is required to assemble a vehicle. That would be some sort of work in progress. Then we have finished goods. Finished goods is products that have been completed through that manufacturing process. It's ready for sale, it's ready for distribution. Most often it is in the final form, packaged, labeled, all of that, all ready for the customer. So some examples here is like your clothing. Maybe it's packaged food items or electronics. These are all examples of finished goods. Then we have something called maintenance, or MRO, which is maintenance, repairs, and operations. So your MRO is basically items that is used for maintenance, repairs, or operational activities that form part of your business. So these are like spare parts, supplies, any consumables that is needed to support your ongoing operations and your equipment maintenance. So it may be like tools, your lubricants, your cleaning supplies, all of these form part of your MRO. And then the last one is your goods in transit. Goods in transit is basically inventory that is in transit between different locations, like from a supplier to a warehouse, or from a warehouse to a customer. Um, so this inventory type includes different products that are like transported via, um, you know, various different modes of transport, like trucks and shipping and train and airlines, etc. Um, and these are your different products, obviously, that is being shipped from a manufacturing facility to a distribution center. Okay. Um, then when we want to speak about purpose. Okay, so when we're looking at raw materials, work in progress, your finished goods, all of these are directly related to your production process. Whereas your maintenance and repairs, it supports your ops. Your goods in transit represents your inventory that's in motion between different locations. When we're looking at the stages within the production process, your raw material is at the beginning stage. Your work in progress is your sort of middle stage or intermediate stage, and finished good is at the final stage. Your maintenance and goods in transit are right at the end to your main production process. When we're looking at value to your supply chain, your raw material and your work in progress, they contribute towards the value of your finished good, while your finished good represents the final sort of value added product that is ready for sale. Your MRO and your goods in transit, they don't directly contribute to the value of your product, but are absolutely necessary to support operations, to support logistics within your business. And then the last one, which is management within your inventory sort of control system, raw materials, work in progress, and your finished goods are managed within your production sort of system. Your MRO is managed through your maintenance, and your goods in transit is managed through your logistics and transport system. Okay. So while all of the types of inventory are quite essential when we're looking at different aspects of your business, etc., they quite varied in like purpose, your stage, your value, as well as your management approach. So you need to understand the different distinctions between all five of these, in order for you to have quite an effective inventory management system at the end of the day. Okay. Then we want to go into inventory within the supply chain itself. Um, so we know obviously supply chain or inventory plays quite an important role within the supply chain itself. It acts as a buffer between production and distribution itself. It just basically makes sure that your operations run smoothly, you're meeting your customer demand, your customer is then satisfied at the end of the day. So some of the sort of roles of inventory in the supply chain. The first one is demand fluctuation. So here, inventory serves also or acts as a buffer, um, especially to manage any sort of demand fluctuation in your supply chain. So you need to be able to maintain quite an appropriate inventory level in your business, in order to meet your customers' demand without disrupting production or using or causing any sort of stock out in your business. Then you need to also balance your supply and your demand, um, and you need to be able to bridge the gap between production as well as what your customer demands. So you need to have quite a strategically positioned inventory at all points in your supply chain, so that you can respond quickly to changes in market demand, and in order for you to still maintain what your customer satisfaction is going to be. Then reduction of lead times or reducing your lead times. Um, Most times, your inventory allows for businesses to reduce their lead times because they're keeping the products readily available so that it goes out on delivery immediately as it's ordered by a customer. It is important, especially in a competitive market or competitive environment where you have quick response times, um, and also retaining customers and having a competitive advantage, etc. But sometimes having too much of stock can cause you to have too much of carrying cost sitting in your business. Then you want to look at mitigation of risks, especially risks within your supply chain itself. So inventory, again, is a little bit of a buffer against disruptions like your supply is delayed with products, raw material, or different components. Maybe your transport has given you issues where they don't arrive on time, they're delayed by days. And also, if your customers' demand spikes unexpectedly and you didn't forecast for this to happen. So, when you are maintaining sufficient inventory or sufficient safety stock in your business, you can mitigate the impact of any of the unforeseen effects. You can still have continuous or continuity within your business. Optimizing economies of scale. Um, so here it's basically ensuring that when you have economies of scale, you're producing and you're storing goods in bulk as it speaks. You um, you tend to basically reduce your per unit production cost because you are using economies of scale, and your transport expenses because you're not transporting to maybe a retailer or a wholesaler in bulk, which means you have an overall cost saving, which therefore affects your supply chain. And then the last one is enabling anything from a just-in-time practice perspective, by allowing your business to synchronize your production um, with demand, and you can minimize any sort of excess inventory in this case because you are focusing on reducing waste, you're focusing on improving your efficiency and having a better responsiveness to your customer, all of which is facilitated using an effective inventory management system. Um, so that basically speaks about the role of inventory, especially within a supply chain, and how important it is. Then we want to classify your inventory. So you want to categorize your inventory items based on what the value is, what the usage is, what is the demand variability of it. And the classification, especially from an inventory perspective, it helps your business to prioritize um, different efforts that they're making. It allows for the resources to be distributed efficiently as possible, and also can improve and optimize your inventory level. So the first one, which we spoke about earlier, which is categorizing it into three groups, which is A, B, and C, based on their value, based on their contribution to sales or profitability. So as I mentioned, A is um, small percentage of total inventory, but contributes the highest. B is moderate level, and C is obviously your lowest level. Um, so with the ABC analysis, it does help businesses, especially when they're looking at prioritizing their inventory management efforts, because they're focusing more on class A, while they're still implementing more streamlined processes for class B and I mean class C. So class B will fall in between the two of them. Okay, the next one is usage-based classification. And in this case, your inventory is classified based on their usage pattern, meaning are they fast moving? Are they slow moving? Maybe the product or the inventory is now obsolete and you can't use it anymore. So when you have fast moving, it means that it's high demand, the turnover rate is quite rapid, which means you need to replenish this item very frequently. Slow moving item, it's a slower demand or a lower demand, and it's a lower turnover rate. While your obsolete items means that it's no longer in demand, you may need to dispose of it, may need to liquidate it. So you're then going to categorizing your inventory based on how they're being used. Then you've got value-based classification. So inventory is classified based on their monetary value. High value, medium value, and then low value. So high value means that they have quite a significant monetary value, and they represent quite a big portion of the total inventory value. Medium value, they have a moderate value, while low value basically has very minimal monetary value. So when you're looking at the value-based classification, it does help your businesses to allocate your resources based on the financial impact of the different inventory groups or inventory items. It can also help businesses make decisions like pricing, storage, what are you going to invest in from a technology perspective, etc. Then you got criticality classification, which is items that is classified based on how critical they are to business. Um, are they critical? Are they essential? They're non-essential. So critical items are quite essential for maintaining production or maintaining service delivery and can have quite a significant consequence if it's not available. Essential items are important, but it has a less of an immediate sort of impact on ops, and non-essential um, can be managed very differently in terms of better flexibility, etc. So critical items or criticality classification can help businesses to um, prioritize a lot of their inventory efforts as well. They can implement better contingency plans so that a lot of the risk is then mitigated at the end. And then the last one is lead time. So the inventory is classified according to the lead time. Is it short? Is it long? Is it varied? So if you have a short lead time, it means it can quickly be replenished. While long lead times, it's more planning that's involved. You need more buffers. And then if you have a variable lead times, it may be subject to some sort of uncertainty. It may have some sort of supply chain risk. Okay, so taking into account all these different classification or categorization of inventory, like value, usage, lead time, criticality, etc., businesses can use this, especially to make something that's a lot more tailored or customized, um, in terms of a strategy for inventory management, where they can optimize the inventory level and also improve their supply chain performance, um, which then in turn brings efficiency in the business, minimizes the cost, and improves your customer satisfaction at the end of the day. Okay, sorry, mind my spelling. Then we want to go into warehouse operations, okay, which is now we sort of like streaming into theme two. So when we're talking about the evolution of warehouse operations, a lot of it is influenced by tech, um, the behavior or customer behavior changes, globalization, political trends, the need for businesses to want more efficiency, um, with supply chain basically taking over, better agility as well. So over time, you'll see, businesses went from extremely manual, extremely labor intensive, to then becoming highly automated, very data driven, all of this. So firstly, you want to look at from a manual perspective, where it was sort of like pre-industrial revolution. It was manual, it was very labor intensive. Products were stored in simple warehouses or simple storage facilities. And a lot of the inventory management relied on manual counting, manual recording, um, the warehouse layout, the organization, all of this was very rudimentary as well. There was very little emphasis on having efficiency in your business and having optimization in your business. Then we go into the late 19th, sort of early 20th century. Um, and here we have more mechanization. So when we're looking at the industrial revolution itself, a lot of advancements then came into account, where there was introduction of mechanical handling equipment like conveyors and forklifts. So mechanization improved, and that improved with efficiency of handling material better, storing it in a better place, transporting between warehouses, where you have better productivity. Then came computerization, which is sort of like late 20th century, where a lot of businesses went into computer technology, like having WMS, warehouse management systems, emerging and being implemented, where they have RFIDs, your radio frequency identification, maybe there's barcoding, better order processing, all of this sort of revolutionized inventory management, provided better tracking, something that's more real time, better accuracy, and also better visibility into your warehouse ops. Then we have automation and robotics in the 21st century. It witnessed quite a significant shift towards automation robotics, where you now had um, automated storages, or maybe automated, like guided vehicles as well, robotic picking systems. It transformed a lot of the material handling and how you would process, or do order fulfillment. So the, the tech itself, or the automation and robotics, allowed for better efficiency, better accuracy, whilst you reduce labor costs, whilst you have better cycle times. Then we go into the omni-channel e-commerce fulfillment side. As you know, sort of especially in South Africa post COVID, um, e-commerce rose quite significantly. And omni-channel, sort of from a retail perspective, it transformed a lot of businesses, warehouse operations. So warehouses now are they fulfill like smaller orders that is much more frequent. Um, They have shorter delivery times. So a lot of it led to having, better technology, like better order picking systems, better sorting systems. So e-commerce, I mean, I love e-commerce and the whole idea around it, especially from a logistics perspective. So as a logistics provider, you can, integrate very well with different APIs from a logistics platform. But having that direct link into a warehouse management system, if I have to place an order as a customer onto an online website, I know how much of stock is then available. I don't want to come to a point where I order something and then I get into checkout page and then they tell me that it's sold out. Um, so all of this, it has revolutionized. Now, the smaller, more frequent orders, we're getting it. I mean, we currently are doing some of the Woolworths delivery. So if you have to order online from Woolworths, you can get a next day delivery. It's as simple as that. You have shorter lead times, but you're pushing out like 2,000 orders a day, um, and it's something that has, you know, revolutionized quite nicely, especially with the integration of technology. It allows for both the logistics provider as well as e-com party to create quite great customer satisfaction at the end. And then the last one is looking at sustainability as well as green warehousing, which hasn't completely taken off from a South African perspective. But a lot of times, with like your growing concern, especially with environmental sustainability, all of this, there's quite a big emphasis on green warehousing. Um, so some businesses or some warehouse businesses are adopting like energy efficient, lighting, maybe better HVAC systems, or the building materials um, that they use to reduce energy consumption, reduce the carbon footprint. Maybe it's better recycling strategies, better waste strategies. All of these are now being used in warehousing operations now. A lot of times, sustainability holds quite a big impact when we have to look at ISO accreditation for businesses as well as triple BEE levels. Okay. Then we want to talk about a little bit of the factors that influence your warehouse operations itself. Um, so whether it means that the way that they shape your layout, your processes, your efficiency of your business, there's both internal and external factors. So some of the internal factors is your characteristics of your inventory. So this is what type of inventory you have, what is the size of the inventory, and do you have many SKUs? So how many different SKUs? Remember, SKUs can vary. Let's say you're a retailer of textiles or fashion, for instance. You have black t-shirts. You have black t-shirts in small, medium, large, extra large, double XL. That's 5 different SKUs. Now imagine you have 4 different colors of it. That's 20 SKUs. So you need to understand what the different variability of your inventory is, because it directly impacts where your warehouse operations. For instance, if you have perishable goods, you need different ways of how you would store it, how you would handle it compared to if you had goods that were more durable. If you had pharmaceutical items, your temperature control needs to be in tune with what um, um, the medical board or is asking for. So your inventory needs to be characterized accordingly, and your warehouse needs to be able to factor in those characteristics at the end of the day. Then you have your inventory or your warehouse layout as well as the design. So how your warehouse is laid out, it needs to be designed in a way where it doesn't impact your where your material flows, how you pick your items, and then from a space utilization perspective. So you need to consider what is like the width of your aisle. Maybe you need racking. How big is your racking that you need? What's the storage configuration? What equipment do you need? Where does equipment need to be placed? All of this needs to be considered when you are optimizing your warehouse operations at the end of the day. So if you have racking that goes up 4 high, maybe I'll stick with textile or fashion as an example. You have little cubicles in the racks for different SKUs, so it's easier from a packing perspective. You're not going to have t-shirts on one side on the left and then more t-shirts on the right. All your t-shirts are going to be together. Shoes, pants, shorts, socks, whatever the case may be, can then follow suit. Then we speak on tech and automation. So the level of technology and the level of automation that you have or you adopt within your specific warehouse, it does impact your operations itself. So when you have a good WMS system, it impacts your warehouse because you're not doing regular stock takes if you were to be on a manual perspective. If you have maybe conveyor systems or you have robotics in your warehouse, all of this can improve your efficiency. It can improve your accuracy, especially from a stock count perspective, which thereafter influences your warehouse operations. Labor force, you need people that are skilled, that are trained, that are quite productive so that you can also enhance your operational performance in the warehouse. You need to be able to schedule shifts according to how you want them to work, so that you have better labor utilization at the end. Then you have WMS, which is your warehouse management system. And you want the effectiveness of this, with better inventory management, how you process your orders. And you need a WMS that's quite robust in order for you to get real-time data visibility so that you can improve your accuracy as much as possible and your workflows gets quite streamlined. And then lastly, you need safety and compliance regulation, um, because you want a safe working environment. You want them to adhere to the regulation so that you mitigate your risk as much as possible. Every business needs it, not only if you have a warehouse operation, but it's just from a mitigation perspective. Then we want to look at external factors. And the first one is looking at the fluctuation in your customers' demand, market trends change, fashion changes, all of this influences your warehouse operations. So now you would probably need like faster order fulfillment, maybe there's customization that's involved. All of these pushes your warehouse operations to be a lot more responsive.
I saw some girl saying Hore, and this is when I understood. She's like, you're a woman, you're on your period, and you have to wait for your.
Sorry, seems like someone was unmuted there. Okay, and then we have supplier performance, which is the reliability, the performance of your supplier itself. All of this impacts your inbound logistics and how you replenish your inventory at the end of the day. Transport and your logistics. So what is your transport constraints? What is your lead time? What is your lead time? What is your different shipping costs? All of this affects your warehouse operations. So you need efficiency in terms of transport networks, in terms of where you are strategically located, so that it impacts your planning from an inbound and an outbound perspective. Then you have regulatory environment where your trade policies, your external regulations, all of this influences your operations, particularly from an international trade and a customs compliance side. So you need to adhere to import, export regulation, customs procedures, all of this so that you have a better and more smoother operation. Market competition. So obviously the markets are fairly competitive right now in various different industries. Um, so it does push warehouses and businesses to improve efficiency, reduce as much cost as possible, bring in innovation like tech, like uh, better customer services in order for them to stay competitive in the market. And then lastly, it is your economic conditions. So we're talking inflation, we're talking interest rates, consumer spending, obviously now with the hike in the fuel price, that sort of goes down completely. But all of this impacts your warehouse operation. So when you have an economic downturn, people don't demand as much. Your um, your inventory levels, tend to be quite stagnant, or it ends up increasing because what you have forecasted for is actually not what is reality. While the economic growth, it can also necessitate like expansion or increased capacity, whatever that may be. Okay. Then we want to talk about the process flow through a warehouse, which I think is quite self-explanatory as well if you have to think about a product that you see on a shelf when you walk into a retailer. So the flow of the products through your warehouse itself, there's various different stages, various different processes that involved. So the first one is receiving. And most often than not, in a warehouse operation, you have a receiving area where you have incoming shipments from suppliers that are sort of offloaded. You inspect it, you count it, you check it against any sort of purchase order or a delivery note that you have. You then would typically sort it, maybe label or barcode it, and then you assign it to where you need to store it according to maybe a inventory classification or characteristic within your specific warehouse. Then you have your storage option. And when we're looking at storage, it means that your product is being stored in a specific area that you choose according to what your warehouse design or layout is, whether it's on a rack, whether it's on a shelf, or whether it's in a pallet or bin or on the floor. um, and you base this on, what is the, maybe it's an SKU classification, maybe it is something that is very short-term stored. So whatever that storage requirement is, that's how you're going to work it. Um, then you've got order picking, and here it means that you are basically picking items from the storage location in your warehouse to fulfill that customer's order. So you can do it in various different ways, whether it is you picking it from a batch perspective, you're picking it from a zone, you wave picking it. A lot of this is based on how you characterize that order that you're receiving from the customer, how your warehouse is laid out, or what is your operational requirement. So it's touch and go for any one of these options, basically. Then you've got packaging and shipping. So after you pick your items, your products are then packed into, maybe it's shipping containers like boxes or pallets or flyer bags, and then they are prepared for outbound shipment. So your packing method also can vary, whether it is a product that is fragile, or a customer has a different shipping requirement, or what maybe the customer specified that they wanted gift wrapped into a bubble wrap and then into a fly bag and then into a box. So however way your customer basically says that they want it packed, if there is a specification on your website. Once that's done, you then print out your shipping label and any documentation that needs to go ahead with that product, and you basically stage it for loading it into a transport vehicle. Then you have your returns process, which is receiving or inspecting any sort of return product from a customer. So your returned items, depending on what business you are, you can be restocked, it can be refurbished, refurbished or you have to dispose of it, depending on what your company policy is and depending on the condition of the actual product. Okay, so that's your process. Then we want to talk about the inbound, outbound, or inbound, outbound. So inbound storage, outbound process. Okay, so when you analyze these three in your warehouse, um, it also works in conjunction with like your products, how they flow through the facility from whether you're receiving your product right down to you shipping the item. So it does play quite an important role, especially in warehouse management, in order for you to get overall efficiency. So a lot of times if you walk into a warehouse, let's call it a 3PL, the way they would quote you is inbound storage and then outbound. Inbound meaning receiving, storage meaning long term or short term, and then outbound meaning out for delivery. So when we're talking about inbound, it means receiving that um, item or incoming shipment. You're verifying it, all of this, and then it's recorded, and then you make it available for storage or for order fulfillment. Um, you obviously need to unload it, you need to sort it, and then you put it away, meaning that you now put it into storage. Your storage operation, you manage this inventory within your warehouse, whether you are tracking it or maintaining your inventory records, tracking your stock levels, anything from a movement within the facility itself is what sits within the storage portion of it. And then outbound, lastly, it means order picking, where you are retrieving your products from your different storage location to fulfill your customers' orders. So very similar to what we had seen from a process flow perspective in the previous slide. Okay, then we want to talk about value added logistics. So when we're looking at value added logistics, it's basically any sort of service that enhances the value of the product as it moves through the supply chain. It can go beyond like just, traditional logistics or traditional warehousing. It can be like assembly and customization and labeling and packaging and everything that you see here, okay, on the slide. So we'll just go over some of them. The first one is customization and personalization, where a customer has specifications for what they require. So you're tailoring a solution. And a lot of businesses go down this route because they want to differentiate themselves in the market so they can address, individual customer preferences, individual customer needs, all of this. Then you've got product assembly, where or something from a configuration perspective, where different parts, different components are combined into that finished good according to what the customer wants. Um, and then we've got quality control, which is basically more from a QC, inspection, all of these different processes that meets the quality and like regulatory standard that you set out as a business. So you need to conduct quality checks where the businesses can identify, they can also address defects or issues before it actually goes on to a customer. So at this stage, you have better reliability of your product. Packaging, a lot of businesses opt for this, but you can basically have better presentation, maybe better protection of your product, and you can identify the product. Imagine having something that is in a customized packaging and it's sitting in a blue chip company at the reception. Everyone who walks past looks at this item, oh my God, where is this from? And that immediately creates something from an advertising perspective. So when you have something that's very well designed, it can, bring better visibility. Also, if it's better from a protection perspective, you don't have as much damages during transit. It looks better on a shelf, and then you have a better customer experience when they're unboxing it. Then we have kitting. And this is where you are kitting and you're bundling items into sets. Like, for instance, in my previous company, we had the distill account where you would have, like, let's say, a bottle of whiskey with two glasses there. That is what kitting is. So we would get the bottles, we would get the glasses, we would get the boxes, and we had to basically kit the item from a warehouse perspective ourselves. Put in the bottle, put into two glasses, close it up, maybe put a ribbon on it, pop it into a box, put on a shipping label, and then ship it out. I'm obviously making it sound a lot more simpler, but this can offer a lot better, um, service offerings or value added offers to your customers. You're looking at bundling, providing different accessories. Uh, better sales opportunities comes out of a lot of this. Then you have reverse logistics, which is also your after sales support, um, where from a product return or a repair or anything from a recycling perspective, you want to offer a better, more seamless process, like something that's a little bit more automated. Let's say you're an e-commerce company, you bought an item of clothing, you then got it delivered and it's not fitting you. You want to now return it. Now, a lot of people find it to be a complete schlep to have to do this, whereas if you make it a simpler functionality on your website, you probably will have a lot more buy-in and people will keep coming back to your website. Maybe at the click of the button, you add in your order number, then it has a return option. Based on that, you can then drop it off at your closest counter. Maybe it's a Pago, Paxi, Postnet, whatever it is, drop it off there. They print out your tracking number or your shipping label, and then they would ship it off for you. Um, Sometimes doing it on your own account does create a little bit of a problem, if that makes sense. I order from a specific website quite often, also clothing. If I get it and I don't love it, I then have to, on my own account, go and create back them, and then they give me a refund or they give me a gift card, whatever the case may be. But I work for a logistics company, so it's very easy for me to do that. I can only understand how difficult it would be to, like, now go through the process if I didn't work there. So creating something that's a lot more seamless does help the situation. And then lastly, we're looking at what we call cross-docking. Okay, so cross-docking, a lot of this, well, it is part of logistics itself. A lot of times it works from a shipping perspective, where you are unloading the product after you get it from, let's say the port, and you're loading it directly into an outbound vehicle. So there's probably no storage at all in this process when we're looking at cross-docking. So I had a customer that we would collect from the port. We would bring it to our facility. At their facility, when we go and deliver, it needs to go in a specific way. Like, the boxes need to be stacked 5 high or 6 high, maybe only 25 on a pallet, shrink wrapped 3 times, etc. So there's different contingencies prior to delivery. So we would bring it to the hub. We would quickly sort out these items, shrink wrap it, and put it into an outbound vehicle. So we wouldn't store it. We would quickly do it, as it would come in. So that's what cross-docking is. It is not the traditional warehousing model, but it does push faster movements of goods through your supply chain itself. So the importance of cross-docking, you look at, you don't have high inventory holding stock because there is no need for storing inventory in the warehouse. So you have very minimal holding cost itself. You have faster order fulfillment because you are kicking out or eliminating the delays with storing and retrieving it from a warehouse, because your products are received, it's sorted, it's shipped to the customer in a much shorter lead time and in a shorter time frame. improve customer or improve your supply chain as well as the efficiency with the supply chain, because you're reducing your handling, you're reducing your processing, maybe your transport distances, unnecessary storage, anything from a handling perspective, so that you have a much more smoother transitioned operation. Um, Enhanced transport optimization. Um, you are looking at consolidation a lot better. You don't have that many stops. You don't have any handling points. You can minimize your transport costs as much as possible. You can, even look at fuel consumption, carbon emissions, all of those items that work hand in hand with it. Can also facilitate better just in time. So cross docking does support just in time because it is quite seamless in terms of the transfer from a supplier down to the customer. There's no holding excess inventory. You have better turnover rates. You have better responsiveness to your demand from a customer perspective. Flexibility, adaptability, all of this. Um, you look at different sort of demand fluctuations, how the customers' preferences have changed, and you can quite quickly adjust your shipping schedule or you prioritize the order a lot better. You can meet your customers' demand, especially from a real-time perspective. And then lastly, from a cost saving side, because you are reducing your holding costs from an inventory perspective, you improve your efficiency, you have better customer services. So it does help to achieve cost savings because you also get better competitive advantage in the marketplace. So when you have low cost, means high profit, allows the businesses to invest in other options like innovation, like tech, maybe expansion. So that is in essence what cross-docking is. Okay, guys, I think we were just 1 minute over, but is there any questions for anybody from anybody? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
It's not necessarily to do with the slides, but to do with the assignment that's due next week.
Yes.
You've put us in groups of 3. I found the second person in my group, but we can't find the third. They're neither
Good.
on this call nor are they in the group.
Group. Okay. So do you mind popping me a message and giving me the person's name or the third person in your group? I will share with you their email address or their student number. You can then pop them an email. If that doesn't work, then I will give you authorization to move forward, which is the two of you in the group.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, sure. No problem. Unfortunately, this group work will pose a few challenges because people are not responsive, but all the names that I've submitted are people that have submitted assignment 1 already, which means that they are present, they have done work in this class, they have submitted an assessment. If they did not submit an assignment 1, it means that they were possibly not interested and will possibly not submit an assignment 2. So I've only given you assignment 1 submission. So I can tell you all of the people that are in the groups, they do exist. They're not ghosts. I will just share with you their student numbers and then you can try the email approach. Unfortunately, that's the only thing, unless what I can also do is maybe try and get a contact number for them from the faculty. We can go as far as that. But pop me a message now if you can, and I will share the email address or student number right now with you. Thank you so much, guys. Um, you have a fantastic day, and we will chat again next week, Thursday. Thank you. Good night.